Now, after having said this, we have to transition to English because we're about to do one of our interviews today with a very, very distinguished guest. Not other than Mr. Mark Merril, co-founder of Riot Games, one of the most important companies in the games industry. Welcome to the Fun and Serious Game Festival, Mark. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Before we move on with the questions, today is a big day for Riot Games. You're releasing Wild Rift for mobile. For the first time, you'll be able to play League of Legends in the subway or when you're waiting in the doctor or whatever. How do you feel? It's exciting time. Are you scared?
You know, it's every time you're bringing a new game live. There's always some apprehension and some tension, and teams have been working for many years to bring a project like this to life. There's a lot of complexity. There's global operations challenges, and we're live in many countries around the world in lots of different languages. And so, we're just hoping to try to provide a smooth experience for our players, and hopefully the reaction will continue to be as positive as it is. But it's definitely also an exciting time, even though there's all hands on deck trying to make sure everything goes well.
Well, best of luck. Although I'm sure you don't need any luck, so it will be very fine for you on your new game. In a bit over 10 years, 11 years if I'm not mistaken, you become, as I said, one of the biggest and most important companies in the world for the games industry. Most played PC game with League of Legends. This year, one of the big surprises of this year with Valorant. Did you imagine something like that when you founded the company along with Brandon Beck back in 2009?
We really didn't. Brandon and I, when we first started Riot, were 24 and 25 years old with no professional software development experience. We were just players who absolutely loved games and had a dream, and originally aspired just to be a game developer. And our original financial model had 20,000 simultaneous players as like our primary goal. And over time, as we really learned a lot more about the industry and we're trying to build League of Legends, we realized we had to build our own publishing business. And so that meant we had to raise more money, increase the scope, and expand the team. And just the complexity continued to grow over time, and the vision ended up having to get bigger and bigger in order to truly deliver what we are trying to deliver for players. And so from the early days, we kept having to sort of respond and react to what the market was telling us, what players were telling us, and as the game continued to grow, we wanted to continue to invest resources to expand around the world, bring it to more players, add more features, invest in esports, and we just have been sort of holding on, for the whole time, trying to keep doing a better job for our audience. And the new games like Valorant have really, I think, stemmed from that same commitment to try to do right by players and sort of make it better to be a player. And that's what we're trying to do. And so, we're grateful to be able to have had the opportunity. And, we just know we always have to keep trying to do a better job because there's so many great games out there and so many great publishers and developers doing so many cool things. We're just trying to find ways to make a contribution as well.
You said you were 24 when you founded Riot?
I was 25, yeah. Brandon
25.
was 24.
So you are more or less the same age as me. Jesus Christ, what am I doing with my life? Okay, let's move on. In these 11 years, Riot has reached maturity as a company. It started fairly small. Now it's a very big company. It's not, I guess some people might have thought at some point that it might become a one-hit wonder with League of Legends. But now there's a success track record under your belt, more than one game, and you're really going in a very good direction. How do you evaluate such a challenging year as this was within this context of growth for your company?
Yeah, 2020 has been a phenomenally challenging year for everyone across so many different dimensions. For us, shifting to a fully work from home model, like me being at home, has been a really big challenge too, because game development is really a team sport. It requires so many different incredible people with lots of different expertise, from artists to engineers to designers to QA to production, to people on the administrative side, whether it's finance or on marketing, etc. On the service side, player support. All of these things and these capabilities had to be brought to bear to do a good job of delivering a great experience to our audience, and that's made harder when everyone has to go home. Not to mention the just the sort of psychological challenges of dealing with a global pandemic and just a lot of the challenges that are happening around the world. And so I'm incredibly grateful for one, that the year is coming to an end, and there's some light at the end of the tunnel and hope around potential vaccine and things like that, but also that things weren't worse, even though there's of course been lots of different challenges. And I'm grateful for how hard rioters have been working and persevering through these challenges, and that we've been able to ship a bunch of games and keep doing a great job to meet the needs of our audience despite these great challenges, including being able to still run our world championships, which we're able to do with a live audience in Shanghai, which was incredibly complex. Logistics were way more complicated this year than they ever would normally be, because we had to test every player that was coming in. We had to change how we normally structure the venue and the event. Normally we do a 5-city tour. We just had to sort of build a bubble where everybody could come in one particular venue. But anyway, it's just I'm really proud of how rioters have been able to persevere through this, and not just Riot, but I think the industry in general has done a really good job of overcoming a lot of these challenges. And so I think we're all going to remember 2020, but I think we're also grateful that this year is coming to an end.
Yeah, well, our industry has proved to be very resilient to these kind of changes. We can transition to remote work or something like that big with relative ease. But a good part of the esports industry is in live sports events. You mentioned it. How big of a hit do you think that part of the industry is taking after this year?
Yeah, I think it's a bit mixed. So to a certain extent, at least in our case, viewership has been up because I think obviously many people are unfortunately stuck at home and often looking for entertainment. So whether it's playing games or being able to watch esports, to a certain extent we benefit from that. But on the other hand, again, the logistics are really difficult. Getting people together to be able to do a live broadcast or do events, is really difficult. And I think across the whole esports industry, unfortunately, certain events have had to be canceled or scaled back, and we had to pivot to rather than doing our regular season matches in our normal studio, we had to have players playing from their gaming houses, etc. And so just a lot of change and a lot of need to adapt. And again, I think that by and large, the industry's done a really good job of pivoting and showing resilience, especially when compared to traditional sports that are much more reliant on bringing people together in person for big regular season games. And so it's been a big challenge.
Yes. 2020 is almost over, although given how this year is advancing, I wouldn't bet against Cthulhu rising from the sea, but I guess you cannot reveal too much, if anything at all, but what do you have up your sleeve for next year? Something that you can tell us about?
We've got a bunch of stuff that we're excited about for next year. One thing that I think I'm particularly excited by that will be new for us as a company, there's sort of two things that are new. So one is, not only are we going to continue to sort of grow and expand, our portfolio and try to do a better job, for all the games we already have live, but we are going to be launching our first TV show, which we've done sort of mostly in-house. It's written and led in-house, and working with our great partners in Fortiche, which are actually located in Paris. So they're a European animation studio that we've done music videos and a lot of great animation with for a long period of time. But we're incredibly excited about that show, and we hope to do justice to our players' expectations around that. And then we're also been partnering with some indie studios, really trying to support indie development and We got some cool stuff in that regard coming. So we've announced a game called, say, The Ruined King as an example, and we wanted to create an opportunity for other developers to do their take on what they like or love about the world of League of Legends in a variety of different genres. And so, hopefully those will be some fun things that players can jump into for the first time as well.
I'll go back to games in a second, but you have mentioned the TV show. You've done also animated series. You've done a virtual group with KDA. I guess that's something that kind of happened. You don't plan from the very beginning, but your IPs are becoming transmedia. 100%. I mean, there's so many different approaches to your IPs right now. How far will this path go? You're really willing to become a multimedia entertainment company rather than just a games development company?
Yeah, our focus on that is that we want to go where our players are and what they're interested in. And one of the things that's been pretty cool about how League of Legends has evolved and how the community has shown us how they've reacted over time is that, that sort of League could kind of become more than a game. And, whether it was on the sports side, with League of Legends Esports and the celebration of community events or cosplay or getting together or, fan art creation or, sort of music tracks or covers of different songs, our community often has been so engaged in all these different mediums and around their IP, expressing their fandom and their love, that we really wanted to participate in that and help, sort of bring to bear, some incredible performers or the great talent that we have at Riot to sort of just invest and deepen the opportunities to immerse in the culture around League. So we view all of those efforts as almost like a kind of a love letter to our audience, where there's sort of these impossible player dreams that people could think about. We're like, well, if that sounds really cool, how about we give it a go and see what we can do? And then, as we started to have some success in these different mediums, it just gave the team more conviction to continue to invest and try to do more and push ourselves to get better and better. And I think that's the wellspring for which all of these different initiatives have come from.
Both from the games point of view and from a transmedia point of view, the safest path is to develop one universe and keep it sort of together, but Valorant is based in another universe than League of Legends. Why did you take that decision? Weren't you tempted to just keep it all together and tighter?
Yeah, we were. So, that was something we evaluated. And, because obviously there's been so much investment in the League of Legends intellectual property, and our characters are cool. But the gameplay thesis and the vision for Valorant was really oriented around, creating an incredibly tight tactical shooter experience and a competitive, really to lean into the competitive aspects. So, huge investment in anti-cheat, great servers with high tick rates, trying to make the core gunplay feel really precise to try to do a better job of sort of fostering a great competitive community and things like that. And so Valorant, because it's leans so heavily into all these necessary tac shooter elements, needed to have character silhouettes that were all the same, like hitbox size and things like that. And so to us, it was gameplay comes first, and then the IP needs to support the needs of the game and the product itself. And so from that dimension, we then built an IP that we thought sort of hit the right stylistic elements and still had interesting characters, but that could still ensure that we were hitting all these great gameplay elements. And just like with League of Legends, we kind of invested in the intellectual property over time based on how the community told us what they were into and what was working and what wasn't. And we aspire to do the same thing on the Valorant side to hopefully nurture not only the competitive scene and the game itself, but also the IP if it proves to be something that players are really into.
Mm-hmm. It took you 10 years to announce your second game. Now there's 4 more almost in a row. So you're getting momentum, I guess. It's that probably the word's not scary, but how do you feel about that? Things are going faster than ever.
Yeah, well, with all of those games that we've now launched, whether it's Teamfight Tactics or Valorant or League of Legends Wild Rift, including League of Legends and Legends of Runeterra, and we've got a bunch of other games in development too. You know, these games, they all take a long, long, long time to develop and kind of get right. And
Yeah.
because we have to build some of the best teams in the world that have a thesis, have a passion, and that can try to bring something to bear that is additive to these already incredibly rich genres that have such great other games in it, if we're going to actually do something that's going to be relevant for the audience. And so for us, the launch and transition into this phase where we went from the League of Legends company into this company that now has a portfolio, that's something we aspired to do for many, many, many years. And we were just sort of parallel processing all of these different development efforts. And so it was almost by accident that a lot of these games were sort of coming together at a similar time. But the company also needed to mature. We needed to evolve our platform capabilities. And, but we always intended to do more than just League of Legends. And it's just also League of Legends grew so quickly and became so big. We also felt it was irresponsible to prioritize trying to build a bunch of other things if it would come at the cost of League of Legends. So we wanted to continue to invest deeply in League of Legends while trying to build other teams capable of building these other games. And so it's been great to see these things that everybody at Riot has been working on for such a long period of time come to fruition for players and getting this positive player feedback that we've been able to get. So.
You have also mentioned your new approach towards other developers in the companies and so forth, your new alliances with them. How did that start? I guess it's a mix of a pragmatic approach, like we can reach out for talent and we don't have to develop that talent in-house, and a bit of let's raise them by the hand and help them to get to more stable ground. It's a mix of both, more one than other.
Yeah, I mean, it really started fairly organically. So, both in terms of, Rioters have so many relationships and friends at different development companies and things like this. And a lot of third-party devs love the League IP, and we're, coming up with different ideas at different points in time to be like, hey, we'd love to be able to do something if it ever made sense. And sort of given that and given just various relationships and conversations, and Riot's desire to try to give back to our players by potentially partnering with devs that are going to be much better than we are at certain genres and things like that. There was sort of the idea became birthed around, just working with more third parties and then, essentially building a publishing label that would be capable of supporting the needs from a development standpoint. And we very much still kind of identify as our roots of like a small indie developer. And so, we greatly appreciated all the help we got along the way from, other publishers or industry professionals or other devs that would give us advice or whatnot. And so, we want to try to find ways to partner and give back and help other studios grow as well, which has informed the types of deals we strike with everybody. And, so we're always trying to build virtuous cycles and sort of positive ecosystems where everybody kind of wins together. It's a win for our audience, win for people who develop, and hopefully if we do a good enough job, we can, make enough money to then continue to invest in those types of things.
Do you think that any of the changes, any of the measures you had to take to adapt to the pandemic are here to stay? There are long-term changes for your company and the games industry at large and the esports industry in particular?
So yes, I do think that there's sort of this interesting social experiment that we've been able to do at massive scale that humanity would not have willingly embraced without being forced into it, that I think has learned or taught all of us a lot of interesting lessons, such as the power of, chats like this, right? The ability for us to connect all around the world with video chat. So I think there's going to be a lot of long-term effects where I do think some studios will probably embrace a fully remote model, from their inception. I think other companies are going to be more open to those types of things. I think a lot of other companies may end up doing hybrid models where you can do sort of, some remote work or maybe some, collaboration hubs, that rather than just offices, and or some offices may, still have sort of a core office model, but then people can work from home more. And so I think that's going to be generally a positive. But it, of course, depends on role, depends on the nature of the project, depends on the company and their culture. And I think there will be similar effects on the esports side, where the ability to leverage more remote sort of broadcast capabilities and studios is going to be something that's going to be here to stay as well. So, and business travel is going to go down quite a bit, which, again, I think for people that don't like to travel is a great thing.
I'm running out of time, but before we say goodbye, I'd like to make you a couple of personal questions, more personal questions than these last ones. First of all, it's
Sure.
been 11 years. Riot has grown quite a bit. If you had to keep one memory, one moment, one achievement, what would that be?
That's a tough question, because there's been a lot of really, really challenging moments that, somewhat in hindsight, I'm incredibly grateful for, and then some really great positive moments too. But I do think that if there's one moment that was probably the most emotionally impactful moment for me, it was at the Season 2 World Finals at the Galen Center, which was the first time we ran an esports event in a large basketball arena. And we were incredibly nervous about the production and whether the show program was going to be sufficient. We had two teams from Asia that were competing. So, the Taipei Assassins versus Azubu Frost. But it was in North America. So were the fans bring enough energy to make the venue choice feel good? Like, there were all these questions. And what happened in the event, and the broadcast went off without a hitch, even though 2 weeks before we had a terrible catastrophe, like, just being in that venue and seeing the passion on the faces of fans, or people were painting their bodies and they had signs, or were wearing jerseys and they're screaming at the top of their lungs. Like, it felt like this incredibly emotionally powerful experience. It's like, oh my God, this is actually happening. And, it sort of felt euphoric, and we were thrilled to be able to be part of this. And there were a bunch of challenges behind the scenes of trying to get the statues that we'd created distributed to everybody before they left. And, but we learned a lot as a company. It was a great, great moment. And I'll never forget it. I'll cherish it forever.
And my last question, I'm guessing that you were much more involved in development and in creative decisions back when the company started. Now it's really, really, really big, so I guess management takes a lot of your time. Do you miss being smaller, being closer to the ground?
Absolutely. And so you're right that, in the early days, we had to be pretty deeply involved in all the different details. And as the company scaled, needed to find ways to replace ourselves. And all of our leaders needed to replace ourselves, because everybody's job got twice as big every 6 months. And that's a tough thing to do. But I do think that, both in the case of Brandon and myself and many of our leaders, the thing that we really love to do and that really lights us up is trying to do amazing things for our audience and come up with cool ideas. And so this is one of the reasons that Brandon and I actually stepped aside from being co-CEOs about 3 years ago and became chairman of the board and sort of founder roles. And it actually enables us to dive deeper into the company, get closer to development, still, be a little more future focused without governing the massive surface area as much. And so we're incredibly grateful for our awesome leadership team, and our CEO, Nicola Laurent, our president, Dylan Judeja, our COO, Scott Gelb, and so many great leaders all across the company that help ensure that the company's run really well and that we're making great decisions and optimizing things while, our devs can try to make impossible player dreams come true.
Well, thank you very much for being here. Before we say goodbye, if there's something you want to say to your Spanish fans, to your Spanish community, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you to everybody in Spain for supporting League of Legends and in our community. We've always been incredibly impressed and appreciative of your passion and excitement and enthusiasm, and we look forward to trying to do a better job to connect with all of you in the future, and just appreciate everything. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mark. I hope we can see you in person next year or at some point here in Bilbao for the Fun and Serious Game Festival. And we wish you all the best in your next endeavors, in the next months, in the next year for Riot Games. Thanks for being here.